Я микрофон забыл отключить. Да, черт возьми. Ладно, шутка не удалась. You see, it's just that I've been whistling the soundtrack to avoid the copyright strike, but I forgot to turn on my mic, so yeah, I suck. That was slightly humiliating. But okay. Well, at least, I guess we can start. I mean, I did nothing wrong, because it was quiet, there was no sound, there was nothing, I guess. And you betrayed me, Mouse. Well, at very least I consider it to be an interesting version of a recap for the events.
研究員の皆さんがあれもこれもと分けてくれました。持つべきは可愛がってくれる同僚ですよね。
I already took my medication. Thank you, Mouse. I appreciate. But I would advise everyone else in my chat whether you need to take some sort of medication, some sort of medical or non-medical supplement. Feel free to have time and take them. Or if you have no such need, then just listen to my gratitude for coming here and keeping me company today, as well as for joining me in previous times. I'm glad to have you. By the way, Клоп, Маус, Каджит, how are you doing? Как ваши дела, Каджит, Клоп? I hope your day was treating you well. You see, Club, these... Okay. How did you even put it that way? Just explain it to me. Жить можно вроде бы. А хочется? Вот выпью водички за ваше здоровье.
あ、それとクッキーも焼いてみたんですよ。紅茶味なんだけど、口に合えばいいな。
But a wheeled cart full of tea and snacks into the room.
だハト。
Cian sounded irritated, perhaps sensing that the tension here had completely vanished. Maybe the hat was ignoring it, or perhaps he didn't notice. I would probably agree with Mouse here. It's just that some sorts of stuff are about dark magic. The hut was humming happily as he poured tea for everyone.
セレスさんは女の子ですから、やっぱり甘いものがお好きですよね。というわけで、こちらのクッキーをお隣のマティスさんと一緒にどうぞ。
どうも。
Thank you very much.
で、アドルフさんとヒューゴさんは、男性のお菓子の好みって判断が難しいので、かなり悩んだんですけど、ここは甘さ控えめのチョコレートが無難じゃないかなって。苦手だったらすみません。
特に問題ない。俺もアドルフも美味しくいただけるよ。気を使ってくれてありが。ん？
They both looked confused as they received their tea and chocolates. Sensing that something wasn't quite right, Mathis and I thought about it too. Uh, the answer was obvious. Dad, I think you're mistaken. His name isn't Hugo, it's Eve.
え
Huh? Um,
は
suddenly, Xian's bold posture slumped a bit.
イブお前は今イブと呼ばれたかヒューゴではなく
Enjoy your
Hi,
puns, Globe.
so desu
So
kedo.
feel free to make more.
ヒューゴって
そういやお前ダーハトが迎えに来てからクルーンとしか呼ばれてなかったな。
いきなり本題に入ったので自己紹介もしませんでしたね。
Wait, so they had your name mistaken from the very beginning?
え
It seems like that was the case from Xian's scarily calm expression directed towards
ダハト
Dad.
俺が調査を命じた時クルーンの長の名前はヒューゴだとお前が報告したのを覚えているが
はい。言いましたね。え違うんです。シュディ出身のお金持ちの人がいるって聞いたから、てっきりそちらが店主さんかと。
ああ、なるほど。こっちでは一度も仕事したことないし、それなら勘違いしても仕方ないかな。ヒューゴは確かにクルーンの相棒だけど、一応店主は俺だよ。ほら、自動車に乗る前、別行動のために別れた彼がヒューゴで。
Gave a start when Xian pinched his brows and let out a deep sigh.
向こう40年言及な
なんですその理不尽な人事査定。ちょっと間違えちゃっただけじゃないですか。
そのちょっとがどれだけ重要な意味を持つかお前には分からんだろうな。せめて全員の名前まで告げていれば俺も聞き逃さなかったというのに。
Xian clicked his tongue in frustration, saying that things were different now. I feel like atmosphere in here changed as soon as I heard your name.
うん、
Yeah.
俺の名前が何か間違えられたことについては特に気にしていませんけど。
Eve asked Xian in an uneasy tone, but he didn't get a clear reply.
イブそしてその仮面そうかお前が
Xian eyes narrowed. He stared at Eve's face for a moment, as if recollecting the past.
前言撤回だ墓は荒らさなくていい死体もいらん
Yeah, I've read what you wrote about Runecast character creation, but I would tell you honestly, without of the rules context, which I haven't read, I've never read like rule book. I didn't delve into that topic. It is to significant extent abstract.
強制もせんこの場は俺が折れてやろう
With that, the negotiation ended.
急にどうしたんですか？
Eve was surprised at the sudden turn of events.
まあなんだ借りは返す主義でそれと
Cian loosened up a bit, using his thumb to gesture to some food left on the desk.
俺の主食はパンだからな。
ますますよくわからないんですけど。
イブ、どうしてお前の名前が出た途端、こいつの態度が変わったんだ。
もしかして、クルーンさん独自の情報網で、この方の弱みを何かしら握っているんですか？
わからないし握ってないかな。正直俺が一番混乱してる。
From the looks of things, I doubt Cian would explain why.
気になるけど撤回を撤回されても困るからあまり追求はしないでおこうか。残る問題は検視の件だけど。
We whispered amongst ourselves.
僕の給料、今月欲しい本がいっぱいあったのに。
Dahad managed to reduce his 40-year pay cut to 2 months, and was now pouring more tea for us with tears in his eyes. I reached out to help him, as I couldn't help but feel sorry about his situation. After seeing the tea distributed to everyone in the room, Cian spoke in a tone far different from when we first walked in.
正直死体の件でここまで揉めるつもりはなかった。だが揃って俺に臆さず切り込んできた度胸を見込み、あの質問への回答をくれてやろう。
Yes, sorry, says Club. The rules of these games are pretty strict too, and frankly, that is what makes it really interesting.
そもそもの発端は
Understandable.
あのふぬけ脳なし近衛兵どもだ。あいつらさえ油断しなければお前らに依頼するでもなく、俺はとっくに変死体の解剖に着手していた。
He was grumbling up a storm, and the sound of things. Excuse me, was the Royal Guard supposed to deliver the bodies here? Rather than the hospital? They should have been addressed to you, Cian.
ああ、昨晩到着する予定だった。
You said they weren't able to start on the autopsies?
それどころかわざわざクーネのお墓を暴こうとしたってことは、
まさか。
この衛兵から届かなかったんですか？遺体。
ああ、ただの一つもな。それどころか奴ら死体を解剖の余地もないほどに破損してくれてな。さすがに俺もここまで奴らが無能だとは思わなかった。
No wonder, says Klopp, why the elder Struggle's deaths were inspired by RuneQuest. The elder Struggle's deaths were inspired by LSD and a lot of things, including RuneQuest and Moorcock, Warhammer, Ursula Le Guin.
それはお墓を暴いてまで遺体を欲しがるはずですよね。だってそれ以外残ってないんですから。
See how it is impossible to ask the families for his bodies because the Royal Guard lost the others. At this point, it's not even negotiable.
で、例のごとくその失態にも箝口令が出たのか。
ご名答。情報が入るとほぼ同時にな。
Which means he won't be able to research anything apart from reliable technology.
世間からは俺が国の最高権力者どうのと言われているが、あくまで俺は王族への影響が大きいだけで、実際に奴らを従属させてるわけじゃない。表向きはそれに従う必要がある。
事情を説明せずに俺たちをうなずかせることができるならそれに越したことはなかったってことですね。
まあ最終的にはこうして話す羽目になったが。
Even if we did dig up the graves, I'm sure it would have caused another commotion. And perhaps the royal guard would have buried that news too.
でもシアンさん、今回ばっかりは相手が悪かったですよ。厳密にはこの衛兵たち死体を紛失したんじゃなくて一緒にプチッと肉塊にされちゃったんじゃないですか。噂のブローに。
Dismay turned to astonishment.
どうしてそこで奴の名前が出てくるんですか？
面白くもなんともない理由だぞ。
Mathis pressed for an answer, so Cian began to speak in more detail about what happened last night. Late at night, the plan was to have the royal guards retrieve the bodies from the mortuary and bring them to the institute. But during their delivery, the soldiers were ruthlessly killed by an attacker that mutilated them. Each heart was gouged out of its chest, and a dagger was left in place. Their bodies were discovered in state no different from Burrow's other murders. As for the bodies to be delivered, they were all cut up by Burrow into unidentifiable lumps. Except for the missing hearts, all organs, limbs, and faces were mutilated. The scene was so sickening that the person who first happened upon the scene went mad and was taken to the hospital. Which was why Cian was trying to find a way to recover the other mutilated bodies that were buried by Dr. Cappuccino.
もし被害者の中にバックアップを取っている者がいれば、身元確認自体は時間をかければ可能だ。現場に残された血液を研究所に保管された遺伝子データと照合できるからな。だがリライバー化は期待するなよ。製薬では死亡申請を行う保証人が死体が本人であることを確認し、かつ研究所で直接破棄した上でクローン体を作成することが義務付けられている。顔も潰され肉塊にされている以上、その保証人も死体を判別できない。リライバーとして復活する権利はほぼないも同然だ。
前から思っていたんですけど、結構厳しいですよね、誓約書のルール。
そうか。王家が定めたにしてはまともな内容だぞ。死んでもいないのにクローン体を増やし、自分同士で犯罪組織を組んだ小賢しい奴が過去にいたんでな。その模倣犯対策だ。
でもどうして奴は変死体にまで危害を加えたんでしょう。
But those bodies were separate from his other murders.
それはあくまで予想に過ぎないからね。
この衛兵を狙うついでに死体を潰したか、あるいは最初から両方が狙いだったのか、それも調査しねえとな。殺されたこの衛兵たちの死体も検視するのか。
傷口を見て襲われた状況を確認する程度なら可能だな。ただあの部隊は根性においてはまだバックアップを取っていなかった。復活は絶望的と言っていい。
Cian said so in a tone that seemed to imply that he wouldn't have revived them anyway.
結果が欲しければ送ってやる。どうせならこれを機に正式な協力関係を結ぶか。
いいのか、この衛兵に黙って勝手にそんな取引を持ちかけて。
その近衛兵たちよりはお前たちの方が使えそうだからな。クルーンに話を持ちかけたのもそれが理由だ。具体的にどう協力するかは俺が今晩のうちにまとめておく。
As Adolphe and Cian worked out details, Eve was smiling happily for some
な
reason.
んだか事情を打ち明けてもらえた途端一気に話が進んだね。あのままだと話し合い自体平行線をたどっていたような気がしたから正直ほっとしてる。
See, I don't know all the details, but I'm glad your name is Eve.
口にすればするほど本当によくわからないよね。
なんだか面白いです。でもイブさんは彼のことが怖くなかったんですか？
怖くはないけどやっぱり緊張はしたかな。ただ俺も彼の研究自体は尊敬してるから衝突せずに済んだのは嬉しいよ。
言っておくが、今回はあくまで特例だ。
He spoke up when he heard the three of us talking to each other.
以後俺がお前に対し何事も譲歩することはない。調子に乗るんじゃないぞ。
了解です。じゃあ以後は個人的によろしくお願いします。事件以外でも困ったことがあればいつでも依頼してくださいね。
Eve gave Cian a friendly smile. The clock finally reached the late afternoon hours. Cian escorted us back to the entrance. Adolphe and Eve were talking about the orders that should be given to the corpse. Mathis was asking the hard different questions. Sorry. With particular interest in the floating screens. Which was why... Core. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Club. I'm forgetting. Old habits take better mean. As a slow walker, I ended up walking alongside Cian, who made no effort to hide his lethargy. This is so awkward. What should I do? Maybe I should start a conversation with him? Maybe I should apologize for being rude earlier. No, wait. That was my honest opinion. It wasn't rude and I shouldn't be ashamed. I should be as brave as possible. I wondered why he was staring at me like that. It was strange, considering he didn't show much interest in me earlier. Maybe he wants me to relay another message to Mother.
死神の娘、お前に一つ問いたい。
I was wrong. Cian looked at me as if observing my reaction. Then,
多くの人間の命の終焉を見届けてきたお前が、なぜ今さらその価値を俺に説いた？
well, I understood his question, but I couldn't come up with an answer. Probably because I didn't have any right to talk about the sanctity of life. The reason I instinctively reacted to what he said back then was... maybe it's because I'm tired. Every time I've brought someone misfortune as death, I spent far longer blaming myself and suffering through the guilt. I could have visited their graves or searched for their families to apologize. I could have done many things to show my repentance, but I never have. which was why maybe I'm just tired of repeating that cycle of regret every time someone dies because of me. I suppose you could say that it's just to soothe my own ego.
なるほどな。以前見かけた時よりはマシな顔になっているはずだ。
Uh-huh.
俺はそんな未練たらしい価値観を理解するつもりは毛頭ないが、何の生産性もない幽霊としてただそこにいるだけの存在よりは、確かに幾分か有意義だろう。
Okay. That's quite a choice. Thank you very much. There was no sympathy or admiration in his matter of fact voice. That meaningful. He had looked at me objectively and saw a change in me compared to before. For some reason, that brought me joy. In the end, we were able to gain new information and a very powerful supporter. I wasn't sure if the results were substantial, but at the very least, we were moving ahead. Sorry. The hut led us to the gate and smiled brightly.
それにしてもよかったです。さっきシアンさんとどういう交渉をしたのか軽く経緯を聞いてみましたけど、皆さんよくこの人に呆れも嫌いも泣きもこびもしませんでしたね。多分お客さんでは初めてじゃないですか。
俺は至極まっとうに交渉をしていただけだ。
それにしたって高圧的なんですよ。救世主とかリライバーの生みの親とか言われてますけど、そんなに選ぶれる立場じゃないでしょ。だってシアンさんが作るリライバーには決定的な欠陥があるじゃないですか。それについては皆さんだってご存知でしょ。
なんでだよ。
The hut looked toward the source of confused
どうし
shouting.
て僕といきなり別れるなんて言い出すんだい。
Right outside the gate was a man in tears, clinging desperately to a woman. Isn't that...
本当に無事に終わってよかった。これでまた二人支え合いながら一緒に暮らせるね。
ええ、まあそうね。
I recalled seeing them before. I'll remind you,
僕と君はついこの間まであんなにも愛し合っていたじゃないか。
it's a couple we've seen at the start of the game. And they were saving money to allow reliable technology for the woman. And she was reborn as a reliver.
しつこいわね。話してよ。
The woman used her marked arm to pry the man's hand away. She was looking at him in a way that made it hard to believe they were ever lovers.
確かにあなたを愛した記録は覚えているけど、今の私にはあなたへそんな実感も感情もないの。その可能性を承知であなたも誓約書の保証人になったんでしょ。
それは。
悪いけど私新しく好きな男性ができたの。その人と結婚することにするわ。どうかあなたもあなたで幸せになって。あなただってリライバーにさえなれば私への恋愛感情なんて全て忘れられるでしょ。
そんな。
The woman walked away as the man fell to his knees.
ね。
The heart tilted his head adorably.
欠陥ではなく仕様と呼べ。大体だな。記憶と人格を生前から保持できる真っ当な生命学を無視して作ったクローン体が。
Speaking of suicides, yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
まともな人間と同じ構造をしていると、そう思われる方が心外だ。
That's right.
この国に革命をもたらしたリライバーも決して万能の技術ではなく、お金以外にもまだ大きな代償を払う必要がありま。
This was exactly what Lewis was going to say during class back then. This was the other price to pay. We could extend our lives as relievers, but we couldn't transfer the emotions we develop into our next clone body. The greater the love, the greater the loss. Clone's unique memory organ, the heart, lacked the capacity to store strong emotions. They were only etched in as a record, but no longer accompanied by the emotion itself. Anger, sorrow, resentment, envy, joy. Of the many different emotions, what was considered impossible transfer to the next body was love. Humans could escape from the curse of death by choosing to become relievers in exchange for love.
これは死神が人間になるための物語。絶望と救済へ向かう物語。これまでにどれだけの死体が積み上がろうとも。
所詮はね、君の決意を促すための些細な犠牲と序章に過ぎないのだよ。
Night fell quickly after our encounter with Seiyan, the founder of Reliever technology. Reliever 3. Clones are able to retain a certain amount of emotions in their hearts, which act as a memory bank, but stronger emotions cause a memory overload. So instead of retaining such emotions, they simply retain a record of their experience instead. It is currently impossible to transfer the emotion of love into a reliever. It is common knowledge that most emotions nurtured in life will be lost. If Adolf and I made our way back to the orphanage and entered through the back door, I had no cleaning, laundry, or bookkeeping to do today, but instead, Mila was sitting in front of me with obvious animosity. It was possible that he wasn't feeling better since he had been refusing the food that was brought to his room. I hadn't seen him for a few days, but he looked even more ill than before.
今日の夕方、やっと部屋から出てきてくれたのよ。ただ見ての通り、少し体力が落ちて眠りも浅かったみたいだから、あなたに会うなら明日改めてと思ったのだけど。
あんたここ数日どっか出かけてるみてえだし、言いたいこと今言っておかねえとって思って。
You wanted to speak to me? I suddenly realized that I hadn't had much of conversation with Mila before. I don't think I've ever had a chance to look at him face to face like this. He always avoided me and made a point to look away ever since we met. I noticed it and did what I could to avoid interacting with him as much as possible. It was yet another aspect of my passive personality that I regretted. Just like with Mathis, I don't have any intention of causing him misfortune. If I had just said that to him before, he might not hate me as much as he does. I was determined to do what I could now, so that I wouldn't have any further regrets. Mila, what would you like to say to me? Feel free to be honest about
なん
it.
だよいきなり偉そうに。
It's because you've had to put up with a lot of things from me all this time. You were afraid, right? Afraid of living under the same roof as someone rumored to be dead.
ああ、この施設に来てからずっと気味が悪くて仕方なかった。他の子供たちは付き合いも長いし、怖くても本心では嫌ってなかっただろうけど、俺は違う。あんたらの価値観を押し付けんなよ。
I see what you mean. He nodded sullenly at my acknowledgement. Adolphe's expression hardened for a moment. He finally took a few breaths and crossed his arms as if signifying that he wouldn't interrupt us.
マム、ここでセレスをかばうのは間違ってる。あんたは俺とこいつだけじゃなく、施設の子供全員の母だろ。
そうね。今まで人々に忌避されるこの子を守ることばかり考えて、ミロが何か言うたびに注意していた。不平等だったかもしれないわ。
まあ、それは俺も同じだけどな。
Seeing that they would stay out of the discussion this time, you see, Mila began to speak.
そうだよ。たくさんの人を殺してるくせにさ、アドルフやマムには無条件に守られて、嫌う方が心が狭くて優しくないみたいな空気ができてて嫌だった。
Milo was finally saying what was on his mind ever since he came to this orphanage. Just as I was watching everyone, he was watching everyone too. Milo.
だからあの日あんたを殺そうとした。
ミロ
He's Mila. His mother and I were both taken aback. As for Adolphe, he was still sitting quietly with his arms crossed.
それは、あの爆発が起きた日、俺が問い詰めてこぼした薬品に。
ああ、でもあれがどんな薬なのかまでは本当に何も知らなかったんだ。
Mila tightened his fist and spilled out the reason why his frustration turned to this.
きっかけは施設の近くで起きたあの大量死事件。投げ入れられた新聞を見て、こいつがあの事件の犯人だって知った時、もう耐えきれなかった。次は俺や他の子供たちがこいつに呪い殺されるかもしれない。そう思って有害なら何でもいいから茶とか菓子に混ぜてこいつに飲ませようとした。そしたらあんな意味わかんない爆発が起きて、正直かなり混乱してた。どうせそれもこいつが起こしたんだろうけどさ。
I couldn't deny that it was a possibility.
なるほどな。爆発の原因はともかく、お前の真意は分かった。で、 薬はどこから持ってきたんだ？
それは
Milo averted his eyes from Adolphe.
言えない。
Seeing that he didn't want to answer his question, Adolphe decided not to press the subject.
わかった。この話は改めて聞く。今日はもう休め。
Milos nodded silently, glanced at me, then took his leave without another word. All I could do was watch him leave the room. Should I apologize for worrying him? It was easier said than done. Even if I apologized, then what? How was I supposed to react if he didn't accept my apology? If I couldn't work that out, any apology I'd give to Milo would be meaningless. What he wanted wasn't an apology from me. A change to the situation.
結局、薬品をどこから持ってきたのか。それだけは堅くなに黙ってたな。
Maybe he got it from someone in the hospital.
かもな。盗みを働いて黙ってられるほど、あいつは器用な性格じゃねえ。
What can I do to relieve Milo of his anxiety? But moving out of here and living somewhere else? As I began to say it, I stopped. That idea wouldn't solve the source of the problem. I guess moving out of here wouldn't make sense, since I'd just make someone else go through what Milo going through.
本当にここ最近で変わったな。またあの夜と同じように一人勝手に飛び出すかと思ったが、ひとまずそれはなさそうで安心した。
Sorry about what happened back then.
でも逆にミロが飛び出していってしまう可能性はあるわ。
Mother sadly looked down at her reflection in her cup of
こ
tea.
の国が運営する養護施設は生活環境に問題がない限り子供の意思で移動することは認められない。このまま不満を溜め込み続けて爆発させたあの子が夜中に抜け出したりしたら、それこそミロ自身が例のブローに襲われてしまうことも。
Mother brought up a possibility that couldn't be denied.
最悪の可能性をいくら考えたってキリがない。俺たちが干渉しすぎても逆効果だ。ミロもまだ一人で考えたいだろ。明日もブローの調査に出るから引き続きセレスを一緒に連れて行く。本意ではねえけどな。
I'm sorry for leaving again, Mother. I'll make sure to finish the cleaning and washing before then. Sorry. So, please, take care of Milo.
わかったわ。アドルフも今晩はこっちに泊まっていくの？
いや、イブと自警団に戻って夜景だ。ブローがまた動くかもしれねえからな。最近は夜景を強化してる。それに新しい協力者を得た以上、夜中に自警団の通信機宛てに情報が入ってくるかもしれねえ。
あら、ならこの子のシチューはまだお預けね。ところで新しい協力者というのはシュディのことはまた別の？
Yeah, we actually had an opportunity to meet someone incredible. You've known him for a long time, Mother. Ian from the Institute. He said he was going to autopsy the mutilated bodies. The imagery of it was difficult to shake.
あらあら。まあまあ。
They had regularly exchanged letters. I assumed they knew each other very well. In fact, Mother grateful hand rose to her mouth, as though to conceal a smile.
どうしてそこであの人でなしの名前が出てくるのかしら。
The pressure coming from her smile seemed to push us both back. I love Salome. She's an incredible character. She's adorable. She's gorgeous. She's great. I wasn't even sure what kind of emotion was making her smile and speak that way. It didn't take long for us to find out. The following morning, a large electric car was boldly parked right in front of the orphanage. Out from the back doors came three shadows. The first to step out was a man in a wrinkled white lab coat.
久しぶりだな、豊島。しぶとく生き残っているようで何よりだ。ここではマムなどと呼ばれているんだったかあのじゃじゃ馬娘がすっかり猫をかぶるのがうまくなったな。
あらあら、何十年と生き死にを繰り返してもデリカシーのなさは変わらないのね、この最古の若作りじじいは。横暴な振る舞いで王族や研究員にも疎まれていると聞いているし、そろそろ第一線から退いたらどうかしら。
I was shocked by the sarcasm exchange between them right from the start. I've never heard mother speak or look this way before. I've mistaken them for friends when it seems to be far more complicated than that. Maybe mother wasn't exchanging letters with Cian because they wanted to be in contact with one another, but maybe they communicated by letter to avoid having to meet face to face. Mother's stern expression towards Cian made me believe my assumption was correct. I found myself unable to intervene, but three figures stepped in to interrupt their friendly repartee.
失礼。この施設の訪問授業を担当している教師のリュカと申します。少々今の発言について苦言を呈しても。
構わん。
では失礼して。よろしいですか。男たる者、妙齢たる女性の年齢に触れ、天津さえ侮辱の理由にするなど、神に牙を向くに等しい大罪です。たとえ事実であろうとも、今すぐサロメさんに謝罪をすべきかと。
He had arrived earlier to check on us and see how the investigation was progressing.
そうですよ、シアンさん。親しいらしい中にも礼儀あり、そこは何年経とうと変わらない美しさだと愛を込めて伝えてあげるべきです。
そうだ。奴の言うことなんて真に受けるな、アム。リライバーである限り、どれだけ長生きしようと、あんたは永遠の自称21歳だ。
All of you're making things worse. For some reason, the two members had been accompanying Cian and stepped out of the car after him. They three were usually very reliable, but on this particular occasion, their concern missed the mark in an unfortunate way. I needed to change the subject before things got out of hand. Lucas actually just got here himself, but why are you two with Cian? I thought you were patrolling last night.
夜景明けに詰め所に戻ったら、そいつがそこの車で現れてな。ほぼ拉致される形で連れてこられた。もともとお前を迎えに来る予定だったから、移動の手間は省けたけどよ。
ごめん、突然びっくりさせちゃったよね。せめて着替えてくればよかった。
Not to worry. Thank you for working so hard last night to keep the area safe. I felt better seeing them here, but Mother's expression hadn't changed at all.
それで多忙なあなたが何の用かしら。 あなたとアドルフたちが協力関係を結んだのは昨べ聞いたけれど、わざわざ施設にまで来る必要はないでしょ。話し合いなら別の場所でしてちょうだ。
この娘はここの臨時職員だろ。一時的とはいえ引き抜きには雇用主の同意が必要だと思ってな。
Employee?
検視の結果、例のブローが明確にあの変死体を目的に近衛兵たちを狙ったという確信を得られた。同時に近衛兵を差し引いても、現場に飛散した肉塊や血液の残量と運搬される予定だった変死体の数がどうにも一致しなくてな。全て潰したと見せかけて奴が数体持ち去った可能性が高い。
Which meant that the two different types of murders were connected. Burrow is a culprit behind both murders and the suicides. Of course, we couldn't jump to conclusions before collecting all the evidence, but
奴に興味がないのは今も変わらんが、俺が求める死体を持ち去ったというなら話は別だ。どうにか捉えて保管場所を吐かせたい。その計画実行のため数日から1週間程度使える駒を何人か雇う必要があってな。
So you're hiring us to assist you in getting the bodies back?
だったらそれこそ警備兵と近衛兵を使えばいいでしょう。
うちの警備兵は侵入者の排除、施設の守りが専門だ。外での大立ち回りには向いていない。近衛兵は言うまでもなく王族が関わらんと無能だからな。自警団とクルーンを借りた方がはるかにマシだ。
了承なしに勝手に話を進めるな。
方針自体に異論はないけどね。現状他にブローを追う方法もないし。
アドルフやイブさんの判断に私は口を挟めないけれど、セレスだけはダメよ。ちょっとした調査ならともかく、そんな危険な計画に参加させられないわ。大体どうして戦うことができないこの子まで。
Sian probably expected her to say that, as he quickly walked over to where I was, standing next to Mother. I felt him firmly grab my arm. Before I knew what was happening, he pulled me toward him.
No!
Sian?
単に駒遣いが欲しい。臨時職員というからには最低限の雑用はこなせるんだろ。俺自身寝食さえできれば生活の質なんぞにこだわりはないが、研究所の部下が。
シアンさん一人でもこの部屋のありさまですよ。それが数日とはいえ成人男性数人との共同生活なんて、ろくな生活にならないか、とんでもない迷惑を皆さんにかけるのが目に見えています。潔くお手伝いさんでも雇ってください。シアンさんがしばらく外に出る分、僕も所長代理として忙しいんです。いつもみたいにお世話できませんからね。
と口やかましくてな。手っ取り早くこの娘を見繕った。
Sian glanced at me.
そうだな。報酬とはまた別に、もしこいつが異名通り不幸を呼び寄せ、誰かしらの死を招いたら、俺が原因を検証してやってもいいぞ。なんなら次回の23年ではオカルト分野も開拓してやろうか。
I could tell that he didn't believe the rumors about my involvement, even as he said that.
なおさらお断りよ。
What about my opinion? Hearing them discussing my life without my it made me feel helpless.
何を勘違いしている。これは頼みではなく命令だ。
Sian let go of my arm, as if he had been waiting for this moment. He took out a sheet of paper and traced it for Mother to see.
それはまさか。
On the quality parchment were words written in fine script, and at the very bottom of the parchment was the seal of the artificial royal family.
王家に書かせた勅命書だ。後ろめたいことがないのなら、しかるべき手続きを取り交渉を。だったな。どうだ、早速お前に言われたことを実践してみたぞ、クルーン。これなら文句はないだろう。
Cian waved the decree in front of Eve.
ああ言いましたねえ。まさかそんなとんでもないしかるべき手続きを一晩で取ってくるなんて。ごめん、もしかしなくても俺が原因だよね。
気にすんな。こんな職権乱用、誰が予想できる。
Adolphe muttered with resignation.
なんとも強気な方なのですね。
Based on our conversation, as well as Eve's reaction, Lucas must have inferred a good idea of what Cian was capable of. The way Lucas tilted his head was similar to the way Mother often did. As for Mother, she was doing her best to control her furious shaking.
よりにもよってあんな王家を利用して権力を振りかざすなんて、あなたのそういう良識がないところが私は昔から嫌いなのよ。
そうか。だからどうした。
Adolphe and I were stunned. We had been here for 7 years. Mother had always been gentle and kind to everyone, and we were now witnessing her hatred and rage for the very first time. I was sure Adolphe was as shocked as I was. In fact, I could tell that he wanted to intervene despite knowing that he couldn't. Seeing that Mother was about to explode again, I hardly spoke up. I'll be fine, Mother. I don't want things to get worse, especially if we refuse the order. I was planning on accompanying them in the investigation, so if I can help in any way, I'd be happy to do so. But the only thing I'm worried about is getting in everyone's way.
迷惑でも足手まといでもないけど、君の安全の確保が一番の懸念かな。
ああ、俺とイブが強制参加なら自警団からはこれ以上人員を出せねえ。
多分ヒューゴにはその間の指揮を任せることになるだろうしね。
少々話は見えませんが、要するにこの方の何やら物騒な依頼を受ける上で彼女の身が危険にさらされる可能性があるということでよろしいですか？
Yes. Lucas, who had been quietly listening to our conversation, diligently raised a hand.
私も彼女の保護者としてその泊まり込みの計画とやらに参加しましょう。いざという時、君を連れて逃げ隠れすることぐらいはできると思いますよ。
Huh? My guardian? You can't. It's dangerous. I quickly responded to stop him, and Lucas looked downcast.
そんな。先生だけこの場で仲間外れにするのですか？なんと寂しいことを。あるいは私が教師として全く頼りにならないと？
No, I'm not trying to leave you out, but I feel bad for getting you involved in something you shouldn't be. You have your work as a teacher too.
それは問題ありません。例の事件を受け、授業の頻度も控えめになっていますから、巻き込み、大いに結構。教師にとって教え子に頼りにされること以上の喜びはありませんよ。というわけで、後ほど移動の際にでも事情を詳しく聞かせていただければ。
Lucas, It seemed he was set on joining the group, regardless of my objection. So, Mother, after a minute of thought,
あなたが必要以上にこの子に関わらず近づかないこと、それが最低限の条件よ。
she glared at Cian with eyes that had accepted the situation reluctantly. Okay, here I'll save, and I would suggest a 5 to 10 minutes break to take care of our bodily needs, get some drink, some food, if anyone wants to have it, and then we'll continue. And I'm back, and we can continue. Cian's proposal was to strategize how to capture Bureau within a specific period of time. First was finding a base of operation, but we couldn't use the orphanage or the Kurun office with the other residents nearby. We brainstormed a location and Eve brought up a place that he said would be perfect, thus leading us to
ななんで俺の家なんだ。
Adolphe groaned with his hat in his hands. Eve was back in his casual attire and smiled at Adolphe.
いやーほら、アドルフの家って見ての通り町外れにあるでしょ。周辺に民家もないから万が一物騒な事態が起きても被害が出にくいかなって。
本音は
久しぶりに君の家に来たかったのもあるかな。
お前な、ついこの前同じ理由でヒューゴと酒を手に押しかけて朝まで飲み明かしたばっかだろ。
アドルフだってなんだかんだで美味しいお酒を堪能してたじゃない。
I guess that they really are friends. I was surprised. It was surprising to me since I always thought of Adolphe as someone who liked to be alone.
研究所に比べるとやはり狭いな。まあ数日の辛抱だ。妥協してやろう。
ああ、いけませんよ。家主に断りも入れず荷物を広げては。
Cian has thrown all his papers and book onto the floor and went right to the sofa upon his arrival. To add,
お邪魔します。昨日ぶりです。皆さん。ジャンが施設を訪ねたら、こちらでブローを捕まえる作戦を練るとお聞きして、僕も参加させてはもらえないでしょうか。もう勝手な行動はしないので。
Mathis has managed to find his way here in hopes of joining the group.
頭が痛え。
I should give him some painkillers. I quietly took out a medicine kit from my luggage. Cian began the discussion by tossing us a bunch of papers containing the results from the autopsy.
ブローの狙いが死体だと分かった理由は単純。襲いかかった順番だ。
Order?
ああ。ブローがまず最優先で変死体を数体潰したとする。続いて目撃者たる近衛兵を一人残らず皆殺し。となると、奴らの死体には何が残ると思う？
先に潰した変死体の肉塊や血液が近衛兵の死体に付着していたってわけか。
近衛兵を最初に襲ったら逆になるはずだしね。
Cian nodded in agreement.
考えれば考えるほど不思議です。ブローはどうして遺体を真っ先に狙ったんでしょう。
今までに似たような事件はなかったのですか？
Mathis shook his head. It seemed Bureau only went after live victims prior to this particular incident.
ならばやはり今回が特殊なケースということですか？
はい。あ、もしかして変死も奴が起こした事件？
襲撃の目的が遺体だったのなら十分にありえますね。
Lucas raised his finger.
自殺に走らせた原因、 幻覚作用のある薬などをマルシェに流通させていたとか、それを知られたくないがために検視を防ごうとしたのかもしれません。
So, then there was a good possibility Adolphe and even the children at the orphanage might have been in danger. The mere thought made me shiver. Shiver?
確証のない憶測をするな。奴を捕らえて聞き出すのが一番手っ取り早い。奴の目的が検視の妨害なら、それを逆手に取るまでだ。
Cian's plan was rather simple. The bodies from the first incident he wanted unearthed were still in their graves. So his plan was to spread a rumor that he bought the bodies from their families for the purpose of performing autopsies. If Moreau's purpose was to stop any autopsies, then he would show up at some point to prevent that from happening. The rest was for us to lie in wait, so that we could capture him the moment he appeared. We would lure in Moreau using false rumors.
あくまで今回は俺の個人的な、そうだな、趣味としての検視として研究所に持ち込む許可が王家より出ず、知人宅であるここで解剖をすると銘打ち、ダミーの死体を外に置いて餌にする。
でもむき出しのまま放置してたら露骨に怪しいですよね。
裏手に簡易テントでも張ってそこに運び込むか。
ならそれは俺が用意するよ。確か前に泊まりがけの依頼で使ったものが店の倉庫にあったはず。
それでもやはりあからさまな気はしますが。
一人ずつ暗殺するでもなく、近衛兵を一度に皆殺しにした相手だぞ。よほど変死体の回収にこだわっていると見た。罠だと承知で盗むか潰しに来るに決まっている。
では彼が襲撃に来た際、確実に捕らえるための策なども考えておきましょう。
I couldn't believe how quickly things were moving. I didn't need to say anything at all. On the other hand, I was so focused on the operation that I forgot to ask for details concerning my part. So, when is this plan expected to begin? I'd like to get some daily necessities ready so that everyone can move accordingly.
秘密裏にダミーの死体を作るには早くて3日はかかる。そうだな。それまでは準備を整えつつ、おのおの好き勝手に過ごせ。この衛兵相手にあんな派手なことをやらかした直後だ。さすがに数日は鳴りを潜めるだろ
う。もともとの活動頻度もそこまで高くありませんでしたしね。
Lucas smiled and began to speak.
最低限の警戒は必要ですが、ずっと張り詰めているのも精神上よくありません。特にイブ君とアドルフ君、君たちは連日の戦いや巡回、調査で疲れているでしょう。作戦まではゆっくり体を休めては。
いや、それは
自警団のみんなも警戒を続けてくれてるし、俺たちだけ休むわけにも。
その他の皆さんより2人が頑張りすぎているから私は言っているのですよ。
I agree with Lucas. The last time you two had time to rest was when you were at the hospital. It's not like your wounds have fully healed yet. I think it's better that you two rest and recover so that you're ready for the next time.
僕が言うのもなんですけど、疲労した体でブローと戦うのはお二人でも無理ですよね。
The two of them grimaced, possibly remembering the fight.
まあ万全でも勝てるかわからないけど。
休みつつ 久しぶりに稽古するか。
Confronted with our concern and logic, the only thing they could do was nod in response. With our direction now set, we might need to make some space to ensure everyone can sleep here. Adolphe, would it be alright if I tidied up the place just a bit?
ああ、助かる。ただし女のお前は一つだけある空き部屋を使え。男連中は全員ここでの雑魚寝で我慢しろ。
異論ありません。ではお掃除の邪魔をしないよう我々は一度外に出るとしましょう。その後は彼女の手伝いをするなり、着替えなどの生活用品を取りに戻るなり、自由行動ということで、私も外泊することを伝えなければならない相手がいますから。
俺に手伝えることがあれば何でも言って。君一人に負担はかけたくないし。
Thank you very much. I'll ask you if I need any help then. Before I start cleaning, I'd better confirm something important. It was safe to assume Adolphe only had enough here for himself, which meant food supplies must be limited. Adolphe, can I check your pantry to see how much food you have at the moment?
ああ、大丈夫だ。それでこれが不足してるもんの一覧か。
最低でも3日間、朝昼晩の食事を6人分となるとやっぱりかなりの量になるね。君はまだマルシェに買い物に出るのは危険だろうし、俺たちで買い出しに行ってくるよ。
No, you don't. You don't need to make rest your top priority.
ただの買い物程度なら問題ねえよ。
I knew you would say that, but I'm still worried.
なら僕が運転してきた自動車使いますか？たくさん荷物を詰め込めますし、移動も楽になるかと。
いや、悪いが遠慮する。あれでクーネを走るとかなり目立つからな。
ああ、そっか。お役に立
では私が。
先生、さっき外泊を伝えなきゃいけない相手がいるって言ってたじゃないですか。俺たちのことは気にしないで自分の用事を優先してください。
何往復かすれば俺たちだけでも手は足りる。
そうですか。ではお言葉に甘えて戻り次第何かお手伝いしますね。
マティス、お前はそこの手伝う気がかけらもない男と留守を預かってくれ。
念のため警戒は怠らず、ナイフは常備していた方が良いですよ。
はい、わかりました。
From the way things sounded, Adolphe and Eve really were only ones who could go and do the grocery shopping. Grocery shopping. I don't know where I stumbled so much on that. Are you really sure?
痩せ我慢なんてしてないから安心して。むしろ休んでばかりじゃ体がなまるし、適度に運動はしておかないと。
Understood. Then please just keep it within reason. If either of you feel sick or unwell, please come back here or go to the hospital as soon as you can, okay?
ただの買い物で心配しすぎだ。
They talked to each other about who would buy what they had it. They talked to each other about who would buy what as they headed out to the marsh. Кажется, я становлюсь сонливым. Maybe it's a sign that I will need to save here and stop. I mean, it's pretty soon after the break, but yeah, I'm I'm not even speaking properly, and that a major concern for me. Sorry for that abrupt end, but well, I want to offer you a better reading, and I'm afraid that right now I may be unable to perform. Thank you for joining me. Спасибо, что были со мной сегодня. Спасибо, что слушали, спасибо, что смотрели, спасибо, что поддерживали меня в чате. Очень приятно, что ты здесь, Клоп, и пишешь это. Правда помогает. Я сильно благодарен тебе за то, что ты поддерживаешь здесь жизнь и по необходимости изгоняешь ту жизнь, которую здесь не приветствуется. Take care. See you next time. Probably, I'm sure that it will be next Friday. The usual time. Goodbye.